We've all heard of famous last words spoken by people just before their death. Among the most unusual incidents recorded by historians of the Civil War were the final words of General John Sedgwick of the Union Army. One of his attachés had warned him that they were too close to the front lines, to which General Sedgwick declared, "Oh, they couldn't hit an elephant at this distance," whereupon he was immediately shot and killed. Another example are the words that Bob Hope spoke to his wife Dolores on his deathbed. For some time they had debated where he should be buried. And so Dolores asked him, "Where would you want to be buried? At which cemetery?" And Hope feebly replied these final words, "Surprise me." In a court case here in Palm Beach County, Florida, in April of 1996, a 14-year-old girl named Brandy Hunt disappeared after attending a late-night party. The next day, 2 surveyors found her lying on the side of a road. She was drenched in blood from a gaping stab wound to her chest. Barely able to breathe, she whispered to a sheriff's investigator, "His name is Keith, he lives in Westgate." These were her last words before she died. That sliver of information led to the arrest and trial of 21-year-old Keith Elkins. Normally, Brandy's testimony would not be admissible in court because it was not taken under oath, nor was she able to be cross-examined. Nemo moraturus praesumere mentari. That is a Latin phrase translated, "A man will not meet his Maker with a lie in his mouth," and came to be known in legal terms as one's dying declaration. And in the case of Keith Elkins, Brandy Hunt's dying declaration was ruled admissible by the court. And Keith Elkins was found guilty of first-degree murder. The 7 last words of Christ refers to the 7 short phrases uttered by Jesus on the cross as recorded in the 4 Gospels. These were his dying declarations. And among those dying declarations from the cross are the words recorded in Luke chapter 23 and verse 34, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." Every time I read the dying declaration of Jesus, I wonder who he had in mind when he used the pronoun them, forgive them. And there are several possibilities that come to my mind. One, he could have had in mind the Roman soldiers who strung him up on the cross. They knew the procedures for administering death by crucifixion and made it as physically painful and mentally torturous as possible. So maybe Jesus had in mind his executioners when he said in his dying declaration, "Forgive them." Or 2, he could have had in mind the paid conspirators who testified before Pilate that Jesus was an insurrectionist intent on overthrowing the Roman government. Maybe he meant these false accusers who turned out to be complicit in his death when he declared, "Father, forgive them." Or 3, he could have had in mind his cowardly and confused disciples. In Mark chapter 14, the Bible states Judas, one of the 12, appeared with him with a crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priest. And then later, the scripture says, everyone deserted him and fled. Only 5 followers of Jesus were there at the crucifixion, standing with him as he died. Maybe Jesus meant these disciples who had abandoned him when he said, "Father, forgive them." Or finally, Jesus could have been looking far ahead and saw me. He saw my foolish actions as a teenager, my blunders as a husband and father, my pride and arrogance, the times that I have doubted or worse, defiantly disobeyed Jesus' words, and the list could go on and on. Has it ever occurred to you that you and I were included in the pronoun them. That's something to consider.